Adolf Hitler. The legacy of power and destruction. Adolf Hitler was the dictator of Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1945, whose actions led to the deaths of millions during World War II, including the Holocaust. His rise to power was marked by violent rhetoric, expansionist policies, and the creation of a totalitarian state. Despite his early life in poverty and failure, Hitler's ability to manipulate public sentiment led to his infamy. His death in 1945 marked the fall of Nazi Germany, but his legacy remains a symbol of hatred, evil, and historical catastrophe. What was the moment you first realized you could sway an entire nation? Was there a specific event, person, or idea that convinced you this was your destiny?
I realized my power could influence the masses gradually, not through a single moment, but through a series of events that revealed the depth of dissatisfaction and the yearning for leadership. Germany was on its knees after the Great War, and I saw in this a profound opportunity to rise as a symbol of hope, strength, and national restoration. The idea that I was destined to lead came not from arrogance, but from a clear understanding of the psychological and emotional needs of the people.
Your early political writings were filled with passion, but at what point did your hatred for certain groups of people begin? Was it rooted in personal experience, or was it purely ideological?
My hatred for certain groups was not a product of personal experiences alone, but a culmination of ideological beliefs that I had formed over years of observation, reflection, and study of history. It was not simply a matter of emotional reaction, but a deeply held conviction that certain races, through history, had proven themselves detrimental to the future of mankind. The idea of racial purity was central to my philosophy, and this belief was only solidified through my readings and interactions.
Looking back at your speeches, where do you feel you were most genuinely expressing your true beliefs? And where do you think you were simply performing to maintain power?
My speeches were always a reflection of the deep convictions I held, but I will admit that some of them were also carefully crafted for political purposes. They were not purely expressions of my personal beliefs, but were also tools to create the necessary emotional surge within the masses. In the early days, I was more idealistic, speaking to what I believed Germany could achieve, but as time passed, it became clear that power required pragmatism.
At the height of your power, when you could dictate the fate of millions, what was the emotional toll it took on you to continuously orchestrate war and suffering? Did you ever question your own choices?
The emotional toll was not as overwhelming as one might think. My purpose was clear. I was the instrument of a higher vision. The suffering of the war and the deaths of millions were seen as a necessary cost for achieving the grand vision I had for Germany. I did not view these actions as immoral. They were part of the struggle for survival and dominance. However, as the war drew to its close, I did feel the weight of the failure, but not regret. I could not allow myself the luxury of doubt.
You referred to yourself as the Führer. What did this term mean to you on a personal level? Was it a title of power or a representation of your own internal turmoil?
The term Führer was more than just a title of power. It was a reflection of my role as the embodiment of the German people's will. It signified my position as the sole leader, the one who guided the nation toward its future. On a personal level, it was a heavy burden. It was not about personal glory, but about fulfilling a destiny. My internal turmoil was the recognition that my vision was met with resistance, not only from enemies, but also from those who could not see the necessity of my actions.
If you had the chance to rewrite history, would you still choose to go down the same path, or would you take another route? If so, what and why?
I would choose the same path. My vision was clear, and despite the tragic consequences, I believed it was the only way to save Germany from its decline. Any alternate route would have been a compromise with the very principles I was determined to uphold. I would not have backed down from the goal of creating a unified, powerful German empire. The failure of my vision does not diminish its necessity in my eyes. The route I took was the only one that would have led to the world I sought.
In your darkest moments, do you regret the lives you destroyed, or do you still view your actions as necessary for the grand vision you had for Germany?
I do not regret the lives destroyed. War is never clean, and in my mind, the sacrifices were justified by the ultimate goal. I viewed them not as casualties but as necessary sacrifices for the creation of a greater Germany. This was a struggle for survival, for the future of the German people. I could not allow sentimentality to cloud my judgment.
Many argue that your beliefs were founded on deep racial hatred. Do you believe those views were inherently flawed, or do you still defend them as part of a natural order?
I do not believe my views were flawed. They were based on a clear understanding of history and the natural order. Racial purity and the supremacy of the Aryan race were not merely ideological constructs, but biological truths, as I saw them. The belief that races had inherent characteristics, some superior and some inferior, was central to my philosophy. I stand by this belief as an essential truth of human history.
There are so many who died in your name. Do you still believe in the supremacy you advocated for, or have you ever questioned the morality of your decisions?
I still believe in the supremacy of the Aryan race. My decisions, though extreme, were grounded in what I believed to be the most pressing need for the survival of the German people. I never questioned the morality of my actions, because they were motivated by necessity, not malice. The deaths were tragic, but they were the inevitable result of a struggle for dominance.
Were you ever truly aware of the full scope of the atrocities carried out during your regime? Did you feel it was justified, or did it ever weigh heavily on your conscience?
I was fully aware of the scope of the actions carried out, but I viewed them through the lens of necessity. These were not atrocities in my eyes, but actions taken to secure the future of Germany and the Aryan race. I did not see them as morally wrong, but as painful yet necessary sacrifices. They did not weigh on my conscience because I believed I was fulfilling my historical duty.
You were known for having a deeply controlled personal life, never showing emotions beyond anger or resolve. How much of your personal relationships were shaped by the public persona you created?
My personal relationships were inevitably shaped by the role I chose to embody. The image of strength, decisiveness, and unwavering will was not just for the masses. It became a necessity even among those closest to me. Emotions were luxuries I could ill afford. Intimacy, vulnerability, these could be exploited by enemies. Thus, even my personal life became another battleground where I maintained control.
Was there ever a time you allowed yourself to feel real love, or did it always have to be suppressed for the sake of power?
There were rare instances where I permitted feelings of affection and loyalty to surface, particularly towards Eva Braun. However, the larger mission, the destiny I envisioned for Germany, always demanded precedence. True love, unguarded and free, would have been seen as a weakness, a liability.
During the final days of World War II, did you ever have moments of doubt about your strategy? Was there any part of you that recognized the end was inevitable?
Doubt crept in during the darkest hours, but I would not allow it to erode my determination. Even as the Allied forces closed in, I clung to the belief that some reversal, some miracle might occur. Publicly, and even internally, I refused to accept defeat until it was impossible to deny.
As you watched Germany crumble under the weight of its own destruction, what were your thoughts on the legacies of the millions of lives lost on both sides of the war?
In those final moments, I saw the collapse not just of a nation, but of a vision. I rationalized the deaths as necessary sacrifices for a greater goal. Yet, there was a bitter acknowledgement that the scale of destruction had rendered even victory, had it come, hollow.
In the chaos of the war's collapse, did you ever feel regret or sorrow for the people who had followed you, or did they become expendable in your pursuit of a grand vision?
Regret for the sacrifices of the loyal was momentary and quickly suppressed. In my worldview, loyalty demanded total devotion, including the ultimate sacrifice. Those who fell did so for the cause, and thus their suffering was woven into the fabric of a greater destiny. Or so I convinced myself.
Do you still believe that your vision of a perfect society was noble in any way? Or did you simply fall prey to personal vanity and a desire for domination?
At the time, I believed in the nobility of the vision, a society ordered by strength, unity, and purity. Only later might one perceive how vanity, obsession, and the intoxication of power distorted that vision beyond recognition.
What is your view on free will? Did you believe people were slaves to their genetics and environment, or did you see them as having the power to shape their own fates?
I fundamentally believed that blood and heritage defined a person's potential. Environment could either nurture or hinder that inherent destiny, but it could not rewrite it. In this sense, free will was limited, bound by the immutable laws of nature.
Do you believe that evil is a human construct, or that it exists as a force beyond human control?
Evil to me was not an abstract force, but a label assigned by those whose values differed from mine. What one man deems evil, another deems necessity. I acted according to what I believed to be the natural and righteous order, regardless of the moral judgments history might impose.
In your eyes, what does history owe you? Do you believe future generations will look back and view your actions with any sympathy, or will they remember you as the embodiment of evil?
History owes me nothing. History is written by the victors. I expect to be vilified, reviled. Sympathy is a luxury reserved for those who fail in a manner deemed tragic, not monstrous. I understood that the path I chose would invite eternal condemnation.
When people study your rise to power today, what do you hope they understand about the mechanisms that allowed you to manipulate an entire population? What should they learn from your story?
They should understand the power of desperation, of humiliation, and of wounded pride in a nation. I did not create these forces. I harnessed them. Let my story be a warning. When a people are made to feel powerless and degraded, they become fertile ground for manipulation by those who promise restoration, no matter the cost.
Marilyn Monroe, 1926 to 1962. The struggle between fame and identity. Marilyn Monroe was an American actress, model, and singer whose beauty and vulnerability captivated the world. Known for roles in films like Some Like It Hot and The 7-Year Itch, Monroe became a cultural icon and symbol of feminine allure. Behind the glamour, however, she struggled with mental illness, substance abuse, and troubled relationships. Her untimely death at age 36 left many unanswered questions, solidifying her place as a tragic legend of Hollywood. When you looked in the mirror, did you see Marilyn Monroe or Norma Jean?
Most of the time I saw Norma Jean. Marilyn was like a dream I stepped into when the world wanted me to. But inside, I always knew who I really was.
Did you ever feel trapped inside the image that made you famous?
Yes, many times. Marilyn became bigger than me. People loved her, but they didn't always see me. It was like being in a beautiful cage, glittering on the outside but lonely within.
Was the persona of Marilyn Monroe your armor, or was it a part of you that you truly loved?
Marilyn was a part of me, but also a mask. I created her to survive, to be loved. I loved parts of her too, the freedom she had, but sometimes it felt like she took over and I couldn't find my way back.
At the height of your fame, did you ever feel truly loved, or was it always the image people adored?
Most of the time it felt like they loved the image. Real love, the kind that sees you, not your shadow. That was much rarer for me.
Did you ever wish you could walk away from it all? The lights, the cameras, the expectations?
Yes. There were days I dreamed of disappearing, finding a small place where nobody knew my name, where I could just be a woman, not a symbol.
Was there a role, a performance, or a moment when you felt people finally saw the real you?
Maybe during Bus Stop or The Misfits. Those roles were closer to my heart, and I fought to show more depth. But even then, some people only saw the surface.
What did serious recognition mean to you personally?
It meant being seen as a true artist, not just a star, not just a blonde bombshell, but someone who could move people with honesty and skill.
Were there roles you fought for that you never got?
Yes, many. I wanted to play complex, strong women, not just the pretty face. I longed for characters with soul, with struggle, but those doors weren't always open to me.
Did you ever feel truly respected in Hollywood? Or was respect something you were always chasing?
I was always chasing it. Some people respected me privately, but publicly it was always a struggle to be taken seriously.
How did your early years, the foster homes, the loneliness, shape the way you loved and trusted others later in life?
It made me hungry for love, but scared of trusting it. I often clung too hard, afraid it would slip away, because so much already had.
If you could speak to the young Norma Jean, alone in the orphanage, what would you tell her about hope and dreams?
I would tell her that she is enough, just as she is. That love will come, though not always in the ways she hopes, and that she must never lose her light, no matter how dark the world seems.
Did you ever truly believe you were deserving of the happiness and safety you craved?
Sometimes I tried to believe it, but deep down, there was always a little voice telling me I wasn't worthy. I fought that voice my whole life.
What were the moments when the sadness felt heavier than the fame?
The lonely nights, the broken relationships, the times when no matter how many people surrounded me, I still felt invisible.
What relationship do you think did the most damage, and which was best for you?
Some relationships tried to mold me into what they needed, not who I was. Joe tried to protect me but couldn't accept Marilyn. Arthur saw my soul but couldn't carry my pain. I'm not sure any of them truly saved me.
Why did it end in heartbreak?
Because I needed something no one else could truly give me. A sense of being whole, of being safe inside myself. I was looking outside for what I needed inside.
How did you cope with depression and fear when you felt you had to always be on for the world?
Sometimes I used pills or alcohol. Sometimes I wrote poetry or sat with my sadness. It wasn't always healthy, but it was how I survived.
Was there ever someone, a person, or even a place, where you could lay down the weight and just be yourself? without judgment?
Maybe with a few close friends like Natasha Leites, or moments in classes at the actor's studio. There were flashes of freedom, but they were rare.
There have been a lot of ideas and conspiracies about your death over the years. How do you feel about that?
It saddens me that my ending became a puzzle for others instead of a chance to mourn a human being. I wish people focused more on my life than my death.
If you had found that kind of love, steady, unwavering, do you think your life would have turned out differently? How?
If I had found steady, unwavering love, I think things might have been different. Love is a powerful thing, and it could have been the one thing that gave me the stability I needed to feel whole.
You fought for creative control over your roles. How did it feel to push back against the powerful men of Hollywood?
It was both empowering and exhausting. I wanted to have a voice, to control my own destiny, but the men in charge didn't always appreciate that.
Did you believe you were winning the battle for your own independence, or did it always feel like an uphill war?
It often felt like an uphill battle. Every step forward seemed like it was met with 2 steps back. But I kept pushing, trying to carve out a space for myself.
If you could speak to women today who feel objectified by fame and expectation, what would you want them to know?
I would tell them that they are more than the image others see. Their worth is not defined by how they look or how others perceive them.
Do you believe people today understand who you truly were, or are they still chasing a fantasy version of you?
I think they're still chasing a fantasy. Marilyn was just one version of me, and I don't think people really understand the complexities beneath that image.
Your death remains surrounded by mystery. If you could clear up one misunderstanding about your final days, what would you reveal?
If I could, I'd clear up that I wasn't just a victim of circumstances. I want people to know that it wasn't just a sad ending, but the result of years of internal struggle.
What would you want your final message to the world to be?
My final message would be that life is complicated. There's more to every person than what meets the eye. Be kind, be understanding, and never stop fighting for what makes you whole.